Would you please welcome Tom Johnston?
How you doing, man? Hi, welcome. Patrick Simmons. And John McPhee. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of like at the Actors Studio with James Lipton, except I'm not quite as sinister as he. 40
Very good actors, even.
40 years. 40 years. That's a long time.
Where to go, right?
Tom, you,
4 decades.
Tom, you and yeah, I know you're a relative newcomer, only 30 some odd years working with these guys. But Tom and Patrick, you
Started this band. You're young guys. You're making music together. I know that it's impossible to look forward 40 years. At the time, what were you thinking? You know, maybe we'll get some gigs, have some fun, and then go get grown-up jobs?
Pretty much.
We've wondered about that a long time. What were we thinking?
Paying the rent, having a good time, and that's pretty much all that mattered, playing music at the time.
And the result of your collaboration, of course, was something so extraordinarily special that the music has lasted for decade after decade after decade. And as our friends can attest, it never gets old.
Ever.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Well, you know, in today's world, you know, we have a TV show like American Idol, and those people, they work hard and they're very talented, and they have their moment in the public consciousness. But it's one thing to be an American Idol; it's another thing to be an American icon. And the Doobie Brothers have achieved that iconic status.
It's not something we sit around and think about. I have to be honest with you. I mean, every day is you know, especially when we're on the road, if we're out playing another show, it's just an extension of where we were. Hard to believe it as it is, 40 years ago. And to be honest, there's a big blank space in there.
Well, there was no blank space for Patrick. Patrick, you've been the constant presence in the Doobie Brothers from the very beginning to this very day, as the Doobie Brothers have gone through, you know, several different phases, all of which were very, very successful. And you were kind of the glue that held things together, weren't you? I mean, that's the way it looks to us.
The music's what held it together. I just was along for the ride.
Well, unlike what a lot of other people do for a living, what you do has to come from inside, you know, your very soul. I mean, you're creating music. That music comes from within you. We then hear it, and then it becomes a part of us. That's an extraordinarily unique talent. Millions of people all over the world can sing along with Doobie Brothers songs that you created. You know, I mean, you can walk into a place where Blackwater, your first #1 hit, which is unbelievable to me because I perceived so many of the other songs before that as being #1 hits, but Blackwater was the first #1 hit. That can play anywhere in America tonight, and half the place will sing along.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. Well, you're very kind. I mean, we feel like, you know, we're just lucky guys to, you know, be here doing it. And, you know, the music, we don't even know where it comes from. It seems like it's, you know, floating around out there, and we just kind of reach up and grab a piece of it as it goes by. I wish we could say, oh, I did this, or, you know, but it's really, I don't know what it is. It's a synergy, I think, maybe that...
Well, one of the songs on World Gone Crazy, and by the way, I see some of our friends are wearing World Gone Crazy T-shirts tonight.
God bless them, each and every one.
One of the songs was a collaboration with a longtime fan. That's where a song came from. Another song, Willie Nelson helped out with that. That must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, both were exciting. The one I wrote with one of our fans from New Jersey. was a guy named P.J. Hines. He was sending me tapes and DVDs and stuff through the years from the time he was a teenager. And he sent me a thing a couple years ago that was just some guitar changes, and I fell in love with the changes. And I called him and I said, "You think I could help you to write a song with these changes?" And he said, "Oh yeah, let's do it. You know, this is what I was hoping you'd say. I've been waiting all this time." And so I started, coming up with some ideas, and I showed it to the producer, and he said, "I love that." And so we continued to kind of chip away at it, and the producer jumped in and said, "I'd love to help you write some lyrics on that as well." So the three of us got together on the tune and finally fleshed it out.
Can you imagine that? You're a Doobie Brothers fan, and then you get to write a song with the Doobie Brothers, and it ends up on their album. And speaking of your producer,
I was a fan.
Now, John,
I got to join the group.
Yeah, but John, you worked with the producer Ted Templeman before the Doobie Brothers did.
Well, Teddy's first hit as a producer, Ted Templeman's first hit as a producer was actually Wild Night by Van Morrison, and I played on the Tupelo Honey album.
Great! Well, John, let's just take a look at some of these people that you've played with. Van Morrison, as you just mentioned, Steve Miller, The Grateful Dead, Elvis Costello, Emmylou Harris, Rick James, Link Wray, Glenn Campbell, Huey Lewis and the News. Well, band Clover, right, kind of evolved into Huey Lewis and the News. The Beach Boys. I mean, it's just been an incredible career. And the Country Music Association Walk of Fame. There you are.
Yeah, as long as these people don't wise up, I'm good.
Okay, speaking of that, we have to go back in time. Rock band members, because things are a little bit.
Rick James,
yes, Rick James.
It's true.
Things are a little bit different today, but I remember reading in a lot of interviews, guys in rock bands, they would talk about their influences, and they would constantly talk about the blues, and they would talk about rhythm and blues, and they would talk about jazz. Very rarely did they talk about country, John, even though you could just drop the needle on the record and you could hear the country all over rock and roll, because country was, the part of, the parentage of rock and roll. But it seemed like in the early 70s, late 60s, the rock guys didn't talk about it. The British guys did. British guys talked about it, but the American guys didn't. Now, you're a big country guy. Do you have any idea why it was like that?
Not really, quite honestly. I mean, I grew up with country music, so for me it was just a natural thing, and I always liked it. And there's just some of the greatest guitar playing ever has been country. People don't, they think it's simple, but it's not. I mean, there's some very difficult to play guitar work that's part of country music's heritage, and but I don't know why rock guys. Not that many rock guys really got into it. Now, Pat here is an exception because he's a great finger picker and acoustic player. So I feel lucky I got in a band where I can be,
And Tom,
contribute.
With all the hit records that you've sang on, have you ever just walked into a place just when nobody knew that you were you, and had
all the time?
No, and had an opportunity to either hear your music playing and watch people's reaction to it, or else maybe walk into some roadhouse somewhere where a cover band is playing, and suddenly it's China Grove and you're just there.
I've seen it in a few hotels. I've also seen it in some elevators. But people don't really maneuver a lot in elevators. I have seen some bands in bars do stuff like that, and people come up and tell you, which is really it makes you feel good. Somebody comes up and says, I play in a band, and I know you probably hear this all the time, but we play China Grove or whatever it is, and we play it, and we've been playing it for years, and I just want you to know you've been an inspiration to me. That to me is very gratifying, that you've been able to touch somebody that way with a song that you wrote.
Now, it was in, I think it was 1975, maybe 1976. Something that you wouldn't remember, but I certainly do. I was working here at the time. I was a young guy working on the radio here in New York. And the National Hemophilia Foundation was doing a fundraiser at Delphi University. It was a dance marathon, and they were auctioning off certain, items. And one of the auction items was lunch with the Doobie brothers. And I remember the college kids there bidding furiously. And I was at the lunch. And I had an opportunity to see these college kids from Adelphi hanging out with one of the biggest rock bands in the world. And you guys weren't getting paid for that, and you weren't getting any publicity for it either. And it was something that I always remember because it was very generous, and it spoke to your character. And I was very, very impressed then, and still am today. 40 years. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful night tonight, and we'll experience the Doobie Brothers in a live performance after a brief intermission.
Can I say one thing?
Oh yes, of course, Tom.
We wouldn't be here without you. And that's something everybody needs to remember. You can play music till you're blue in the face, but if somebody out there doesn't dig it and, buy the music and stay with the music over the years, these things that he's talking about don't happen. So.
All the fame.
We love all your stuff.
Doobie Brothers.
Thanks, sir.